we are now on this one. Okay, fantastic. So in terms of what we were trying to do, we don't need to change what we're actually doing. All we need to do is go to ChatGPT and put in the text that we've already got and say, hey, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using, am I maximizing the why from Simon Sinek's Golden Circle? Okay, just to make sure that every time you're pushing anything out there in terms of marketing, you are actually focusing on the stuff that's going to maximize resonance. Okay, so what we want to do is we always want to start with the why people should buy it. Okay, why? Because you care more than anybody else. Why? Because you want to make the world a better place. These are things that basically the way our brain works is just like this. Okay, the majority of decisions we make happen in our limbic brain. Okay, we are more animal than we are thinking cognitive people. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are driving our main messages to the limbic brain, okay, to the things that drive us. So if you think about the types of things that the limbic brain is responsible for, this is really base level stuff. It's stuff like love, hate, anger, jealousy. It's the raw emotions. Okay, so when we are trying to get over our messages, these are the things that we need to be focusing on. Are we really selling in to the types of things that the limbic brain can get? Okay, because what happens after that is it moves over to the neocortex. And that's when we all start to get a little bit bored. Yeah. If it's not driving emotion, we all start to get a little bit bored of the facts and details. Now, that does not mean that we don't need to have them in our sales pitch. Okay. Those of you who, like me, are selling to large B2B organizations, the what and the how are absolute critical parts of, you know, what we need to communicate. But we're never going to get them to take us seriously and never going to put them on our RFP list or ever going to get them to come to our website if we're not focused on the why to start off with. Okay. And your brand, your continual brand messaging should be more focused on the why than anything else. Okay. Because there's other ways of them getting the what and the how. Okay, so if you look at all of the collateral that you've currently got in your ecosystem, what I suggest you do is get it together, speak to Claude, speak to whatever AI you use and say, hey, look, this is the model I want you to review my marketing materials with. Can you please ensure that we have headings or at least, you know, summaries of all of the documents that start with a solid why paragraph, right, before you go in to the how and the what. Okay, so I cannot stress the importance of this Simon Sinek model. It is so important, and the reality is that most businesses just don't focus on it. Now, one could say that in other countries, right, not kind of Western countries, you know, they focus less on this kind of like the reason and the why than in other countries. But the human brain doesn't really factor in whether you're sort of Chinese or whether you're American or whether you're, it might just be the advance in marketing. The bottom line is if you create emotional resonance, it works with people. So when you're looking at your marketing, you really need to understand what this why is. What is your golden pearl inside? So, you know, let me give you an example, you know, with regards to growth engineering. Okay, so growth engineering is a business that does learning technology. So we sell learning platforms to large corporates. Okay, now the reason a large corporate would want a learning system is to basically manage compliance. I mean, that's basically what they use it for. So it's about, and likewise in school, you know, it's how they manage exams, how they work out who's, you know, in school and who's not in school, right? This is what these learning platforms do. Okay. Now, the problem is, okay, with a learning platform is that that's great. Okay. That it does compliance. It knows if people in lessons, it knows whether people are passing or failing. But if you're responsible for buying a learning platform, that's just really, there's just no heart and soul in that, right? There's just no heart and soul in that. There's no, God, I'm really proud we've selected this learning platform over another learning platform. So what we did at Growth Engineering is create a brand in and around fun. Yeah. So our thing was, our strapline was, we wage war on dull online learning. Anything to do with dull online learning. Now, that's not what the platform did. It wasn't how it did it, right? It was still a compliance platform. It's not what it did. It wasn't the hundreds of features. But what allowed us to get to the top of our game was this idea that we were focusing on something innate, that if you are responsible for training or developing within your company, you want to be thought of as fun, as somebody who's progressive, as somebody who, you know, is creative, as somebody who, you know, really does get their learners going, right? And so that was what the brand was predicated on. That then moved into unleash your inner superhero, right? Again, it's a platform that monitors compliance, okay? It does have gamification features on it, but our focus to get that company off the ground and stop competing with the massive companies that we were competing with for the same budget was to really look at the why of the people that we were that we wanted to attract, and say, what kind of, you know, why resonates with you? What do you want to be thought of? What kind of, you know, makes your heart soar? You know, how can we create emotional resonance with you so that you will look at us before other people, right? So that is how you do marketing, particularly if you're trying to do marketing on a very, very low budget. Okay, so you want to start with the why and let everything else filter down underneath that. Okay, so please do have a look at the Simon Sinek video. As I say, it's old. Okay, so one of the big problems with the videos, he talks about how brilliant Apple marketing is. Now, what is so interesting is now, of course, Apple is, you know, the worst, because its brand is being completely trashed by the fact that, you know, it's saying things that just simply aren't true. But when Simon Sinek first did this video, the way Apple was marketing, i.e. kind of like think differently, really resonated with my generation of buyers, right? My generation of purchases. And, you know, through and through, you could, you know, cut us with a knife and we would like only ever buy Apple. Now, of course, that trust has been broken, and they don't know what their why is. Apple have got really no idea what their why is. And so it's kind of interesting, because you were looking from a video in the past, and now you're looking at that brand in the future. But please do check it out. It's really short. And it's definitely worthwhile, you know, going into it a little bit more. And again, the reason why it is so important is because the vast majority of any decisions that us humans make are made in the limbic brain. And then they are reinforced by the neocortex. So what we'll say is, I really want that. I really need that. You know, that person's got it. Why can't I have it? You know, it's real base emotions, right? I'm hungry for it. I want it, right? And then what you'll do, you'll justify it. You'll go, well, the reason we should have a company that, you know, focuses on gamification for a compliance piece of software is that, you know, clearly they tap into, and they'll start making all kind of, you know, neocortex type reasons in terms of, you know, why they should look at a company that essentially wants a compliance product, but they want to make it fun. Okay, so it's really, really important that we focus on, you know, how we make decisions, which is through the limbic brain, and then how we rationalize those decisions, and that's through the neocortex, because ultimately our emotions will drive action. Now, further in the course, we will talk about the complex buying decision-making unit. Okay, so these are multiple people coming together, making decisions about how we, you know, how they might purchase something. That does not mean to say that they still aren't influenced, right? They are still not influenced by the limbic decision-making process. They're still not influenced by the why. Okay, so we really do, even though we have to, you know, have marketing collateral that has, you know, the what and the how, we always need to maintain that core of the why as the major driver of everything else. It needs to cascade down. Okay, now if you're going to throw yourselves out there like we did in growth engineering and say, hey, you know, we make learning fun, we make learning fun, then that message of we make learning fun, we wage war on dull online learning, we do something completely, you know, different. Our focus is, you know, engaging learners. Our focus is unleashing, you know, people's inner superhero. You can't then have a set of really boring how content and really boring what content. Okay, so you're still saying the what and the how, but you're ensuring that the core why is the golden thread that links that all together. Okay, so you don't move from why and then basically go into more boring, you know, text and conversation. Then that's all about branding guidelines and content guidelines, again, which we will come to later. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to be doing through this course is really nailing down your why. We've got to nail down your why in order to ensure that your how and your what communications are in line with you know, your authentic brand. Okay, so it's all well and good me banging on about this, but I'm sure somebody in the room is going, well, Juliet, you know, how do we know that's actually true? Like, how do we know that actually makes any difference to the bottom line, right? So you just could be spiling, you know, a load of absolute rubbish. Well, I'm not, it turns out. If you focus on why messaging, it will get you quicker to market. It will get you more efficiently to market, and it will make you more profit. Okay, so let's just go through the financial impact, okay, of why messaging. Okay, so first of all, if people have an emotional connection to your brand, customer acquisition happens more quickly. And we've seen this time and time again with growth engineering. We are the people, the purveyors of fun in the learning platform space. You know, if you think that you're a fun person and you want to wake up and shake up what's going on in your corporate L&D landscape, you should be talking to a company like us, because we move mountains and we're going to make you into your company's superhero. Okay. If you get that messaging, you're much more likely to go, you know what, we will put growth engineering on the RFP list. We've got to put Cornerstone and all the big ones that are huge and have had millions and millions of money pumped into them, you know, because, you know, nobody gets fired for, you know, buying, you know, IBM. But how cool would it be if I was the person that got growth engineering into my big, large corporate that's very boring? It would be amazing. Okay. So customer acquisition, people like, you know, that message. If they buy into those core values and that, you know, that core why you've got, they're like, yeah, I want to get those on the list. I'm interested in talking to them. They might not be first on the list, but, you know, they should be on the list. The next thing is, when people buy you for your values, when they buy you for your why, they stay longer, because they're rooted to this idea of, oh God, maybe the platform doesn't work so well at the moment. It's really boring. I can't get my reporting out of it. But, you know, they're still the funnest. They're still the people with the most gamification. They're still the people that, you know, basically come up with all these crazy ideas for X, Y, Z. You know, I still believe in them. I want to give them more of a chance, right? So when something goes awry, something doesn't go quite according to plan, because they are emotionally invested in your why, they're much more likely to come back to you and go, you know, I bought this from you, this pair of skis, or I bought this whatever thing, you know, and it hasn't really worked, but I know you care. I know you care about me getting down the mountain quicker than anybody else can on a pair of skis. So I've come back to talk to you because this slight thing isn't working for me, right? So this customer lifetime value, the loyalty, you know, is bigger. And then the other thing is that, you know, it creates higher revenue per customer because they're looking for things to buy, right? They're looking for things to buy. You've said, I am an expert in gamification and, you know, making learning fun online. So they've got a problem, right? It might be in the content area. We can't particularly help in content. We don't do content, we do platform, but they'll come to us and they'll go, hey, could you guys do a workshop for us? This is exactly what Apple did. You know, they came to us and they go, hey, you know, we can't buy your platform, but we really don't have a clue what's going on in terms of, you know, learning technology. Could you just come and talk to us, you know? So what you're able to do is sell things that you might not have readily available, but also you can upsell and cross-sell ideas from things that customers want. So, for example, back in the early days, we didn't have an authoring tool. But customer was like, well, we'd like our content to be as fun as, you know, the platform. Can you create an authoring tool? And so we did. Okay. So again, it's just really important to come back to that why. And sometimes it does make you feel vulnerable. You're like, well, it'd be much easier for me to just hide behind my tech stack, because at the end of the day, you know, that's really complicated and I don't need to get too close. But people are never going to buy that. They're not going to buy features. They buy why they care. So what is so cool about you and what you do? What do you care about? And what do your customers care about? And where is that overlap, right? Where is that beautiful overlap that basically means that you can communicate at a value-based level? The next thing is loyalty and retention. And this really goes back to, if people buy into your values, they will see past a lot of the things that maybe the features aren't working so well. Okay, so retention is a real a really important point in terms of values. And this is why when you're talking about your why statements, it should be reflected in every single touch point, right? Particularly your touch points on socials and your touch points on your newsletters. Okay, so every single time you touch your customers, you don't need to talk about features, but you do need to talk about the impact of your why, right? What's happened recently? And it can be a tiny story, something really small, but it just needs to illustrate that nugget, that beautiful thing that is you, and that your customers have fallen in love with in terms of what you've actually delivered. The other thing is repeat purchasing. If they have that experience, if they have that sense of, you know, we have the same values, not only will they want to repeat process, but they'll also look to you first for things that maybe they hadn't thought you had. They'll ask you for things. They'll ask you for advice. So the whole relationship with them will get stronger from this authentic golden why that you have in the middle. And then the absolute beauty of the why model, right? The beauty is that you don't need to spend so much money pushing your marketing, because they will do it for you. If you tell them what you care about, if you tell them what the emotional resonance is of your brand, they will start mimicking that. I am a person who, you know, is a growth engineering customer because I'm a, you know, I believe that, you know, learning should be fun. I believe that everybody has a superhero within. And so, you know, if you're looking for something that challenges the edges, but, you know, people absolutely adore, then you should be looking for this company, right? These are the people that will get up on stage for you. These are the people that will give you recommendations on LinkedIn. These are the people that will, you know, and those are the people that will drive your cost of sales down. Now, as an organization, I can single-handedly say that we do not utilize that, you know, enough. But maybe, you know, it is because, you know, although sometimes we come up with the why, and we might come up with the why, and we might refresh the why every year or whatever, we're not absolutely banging on about it every single second of the day. Now, that will change when we come on to the session on love bombing, right? Customer love bombing. Because in order to do our customer love bomb strategy, we absolutely have to know what our golden why is. So in terms of brand advocacy, clearly, if people are pushing your product and service without you being in the room, that's obviously a cost saving. But not only that, if they're getting that recommendation from somebody they trust, your sales conversion rate will go up, which again is beautiful. The other thing is that they will actively define the brand based on more than your products and services. So they will say things like, oh, well, growth engineering, you know, they're basically all about engagement. They really do know their space in terms of, you know, thought leadership and all of that kind of stuff. Now, we don't sell any of that, but your brand takes on a bigger kind of vision of problems that it might be able to solve because of this kind of golden why. And then critically, we might not like it, us oldies on this call, but social is marketing. It just is. Okay, so we might have spent the last 20 years of our life investing heavily in a really, really good website. But the reality is AI is coming along. And as we all know, when we use AI, it doesn't put links to your website. Okay. The only thing that you can do to get your brand, you know, out there in a way that, you know, is big and hard and solid is your socials. And the thing about socials is that nothing really works on socials other than the why. And I can give you a very, very personal example of that. So if you go to my TikTok account, okay, I started my TikTok account. I had no desire to do TikTok. Okay, I am 52 years old and it's awkward. Okay, it's just awkward. Like I see my kids do it. You know, I see like Xavi's done a couple of TikToks. Xavi on the call. He's just poetry in motion. He looks cool. He does, and Cosmo did some, and he like cut it, and he was dancing off walls. And dude, I mean, this is just not the world I grew up in, right? I just don't understand it. Okay, so if you look at Cosmo's Instagram, okay, there's a couple, only a couple. Unfortunately, he hasn't done a lot, but he's done a couple. And again, Xavi has done a couple, not as many as I have. You will see that they scream the why. They just scream the why. They don't talk a lot about what we do. Yeah. Whereas you go to my TikTok is all about the what and the how. It's all about the what and the how. Now, my membership looks like I've got a big membership, but all I've done is I've just paid TikTok to get more views and listeners. So it's not that my TikTok is doing that well, but it's a real baptism of fire when somebody my age tries to do socials in a way that works for the audience that basically gets their information on, you know, TikTok or on Instagram. Because the things that resonate on TikTok and Instagram, and I can't talk about Facebook because that just seems to be friends, so they don't really seem to use it for business, but I could be completely wrong on that. Not my area of expertise. Laura may be able to give us some insight into that because Laura is an absolute badass on Facebook. But in terms of, yeah, she was caught God there. In terms of TikTok and in terms of Instagram, I can tell you, you have to talk the why. You know, the more you talk the why and the less you talk the how and the what, the more curiosity basically your followers have about what you do. So, you know, even more when we look at the future of where marketing is going, we really need to double down. And yes, Laura, I would love, yes, please.
Well, I mean, I know you're not a socials expert, but where does LinkedIn ride here? Like where, you know, I sell professional services. And so on LinkedIn, you want to look professional. But when I'm on LinkedIn, I also try to sell a little bit more personal because my services are more personal. But
okay, so I think
LinkedIn ride here. Like
okay, so I've got a brilliant story here for LinkedIn as well. So here's Juliette Denny trotting along, you know, with her LinkedIn account. Okay, so I've got like 18,000 followers, right? Because I've been in the market a long time. I'm old, okay? And I post on the how and the what, okay? I post these long form articles, which are all about neuroscience. I post a lot about the theories of learning. I talk a lot about a theory of gamification. Like I'm talking heavy duty stuff that then Billy, who is also on this course, comes along and she's like, Juliette, yeah, I appreciate what you're doing. Okay, I appreciate that you want people to know that you're an expert in these areas, but why don't we do a poll? And on that poll, we ask people where people basically say, do they say please and thank you to AI? Okay, what do you think happened to that post? So the difference between my posts, okay, you know, I was getting, I don't know, 7,000 or whatever. She posts the post, it gets, you know, 60 or 80,000. Okay. So I think the same thing applies. For me, LinkedIn is my go-to, right? I get a lot of clients from LinkedIn. I get, you know, a lot of people subscribe to my newsletter, but I have to show my expertise. So I think there's a balance in LinkedIn, which again, I struggle with. I'm just not very good at personal LinkedIn posts, but that's where, you know, I am incredibly lucky to have Billy, who just understands social. And so she is able to she's put stuff on, you know, LinkedIn, like, oh, here's Juliette, you know, I'm working from my remote desk and I just happen to be in a exotic location. I would never dream of putting that on LinkedIn. That's just not my bag. But I have learned from from her, and you know, young people's expertise. And it's difficult to stop your mindset wanting to, you know, do the what and the how. As somebody of my generation, it just doesn't come naturally or easily to me. Whereas young people just get it. They just totally get it. And the reality is if we want to market, we need to get our head around that. And, you know, so much of the stuff out there, it doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter. All of this stuff doesn't matter. The question is are you getting out there and doing it? You know, now my TikTok feed is full of people my age, older, you know, they're not made up. They're totally natural. They're totally, you know, and likewise, LinkedIn is moving. We're in the world of the authentic why.
Can I butt in?
Please.
Just because I've noticed something in the last, I don't know, maybe year or something. If you'd gone back 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I think on LinkedIn, it was really frowned upon, like to put on personal stuff. You know, I'd see people putting up personal stories and the comments would be like, this is LinkedIn, this is for business. Why are you telling me about your holiday? You know, but recently, because everybody's talking about how, you know, people buy from people and it's all about personal branding and personal brand first before your business and all this kind of stuff. I'm seeing more and more people put up much more personal posts on LinkedIn, and it's all broadly around the, you know, this is why I do it kind of thing. This is my, you know, mission as a human being. But there's a lot more kind of personal stories going on LinkedIn. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we seem to be getting into a world where, I mean, if I think about my granny, you know, she never used to talk about her feelings. Now feelings are everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you don't have feelings, then, you know, but, you know, going back to, but by the way, can I just say, I really like this interaction. It's much, much nicer. So if you do have questions, please put your hand up, use the hand thing. Because I love it when people butt in and actually just help me a little bit on this. We will sort out the recording of this. I know this is a magnitudinal mess, but anyway, we will figure it out as we go. So the bottom line is social media marketing is the place it's going to happen, right? So the way we used to market, you know, creating articles, putting it on a website, all of that kind of stuff, you know, what's going to take over that is social media marketing. And so we really need to look at what's happening in social media marketing. And the key to social media marketing is that personal connection. Okay. So now what I want you to do is I want you to think about where you are and your company is at the moment on this emotional brand pyramid. Okay. Now, I found this really interesting because I've always thought that, you know, we did marketing, you know, quite well in growth engineering and maybe it would be kind of a constant thing. But what I'm finding really interesting by looking at this value pyramid is how you can go up and down as the market changes. So as we were talking about in the session yesterday, in terms of 5 forces, as different companies come in and out of the market, your emotional value in terms of the pyramid might go up and down as well. Okay. As a small organization, right, we might not even have brand awareness. Now, in order to get that brand awareness, we need to, and again, we're going to talk about this in further seminars, is we need to be really clear about who our audience is. So don't think we can basically have brand awareness everywhere. We can't, and we don't need it, really. We only need brand awareness from the target market that we're going after, okay? So first of all, we have to have this idea of brand awareness. And we've had some new entrants coming into our market that have done some insanely wild things to get this brand awareness, like super creative, really hardcore. We had some competitor that came into the market that was just so unbelievably rude to some, you know, industry, you know, experts or veterans in the industry, that everyone was completely shocked and so started talking about them. So, you know, there are lots of ways to get brand awareness. It doesn't vibe with growth engineering's values, so we would never do anything like that. But there are lots of ways of getting that brand awareness out there. So we really need to think we can't do anything before we've got that brand awareness. Then it goes up to brand performance. Have you actually got a brand in the marketplace which is performing and actually delivers consistently? Okay. Again, in the course, we are going to go through branding guidelines and we are going to go through content creation. In order to build a brand, you cannot deviate. Okay, you cannot deviate. You need to have a set of branding guidelines and a set of content calendar, which just reinforces the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So this will basically allow you to have brand performance. Then we go up to the brand bonding, okay? And this is about sharing customer stories. It's about sharing the inside of what's going on in your organization. It's about basically, you know, creating that emotional resonance and building that trust over time. Then what we would really want to get is brand love. Okay, so this is passionate customer advocates. These are people that want to be on your social channels going, you know, this company is the absolute, you know, best company ever, and we, you know, endorse it, etc., etc. And then this final level is brand transcendent. And the issue with that is whatever you do, you can never really mess up. Okay, but the problem is that's what Apple had, right? And it's really easy to fall off that perch. Okay, so we're not expecting us to get all the way up here, but we do need to be somewhere in these three. Absolutely, we do. So think about where you are now. Certainly by the end of the course, you know, you will have the tools in order to have consistent brand performance. So, you know, just think about where you are now, and then let's, you know, work on basically where you need to get to. Up here, we've got a session on customer love bombing, as I was telling you about, and that's all about trying to bond with your customers and trying to basically get that level of love ratcheted up. So we do have a whole session on how we're going to move your brand up this pyramid. Okay, so that's one thing for homework today. The next thing is emotional resonance mapping. Okay, so when we think about our golden why, okay, so one of the things, and again, I'm going to go back to the growth engineering thing about unleashing your inner superhero and waging war on dull online learning, right? Really kind of vivid, clear statements about where we are in the market, right? So if we just take that as an example, okay, and if anybody else has got an example that they want to share, please stick your hand up and we can go through that as well. So first of all, we wage war on dull online learning. If you are in a corporate L&D role and you are buying learning technologies, you absolutely want to be part of a tribe that is not called compliance. Because as soon as anybody hears the word, we're rolling out compliance training, they want to take a big sharp object and stick it in their eye, okay? So they do not want to be part of a company that basically sells compliance. They want to be the people that are waging war on dull online learning and changing the world and unleashing superheroes. That's what they want. So that's why the belonging works, right? The growth works in that element because nobody had ever really done it before. So people were really curious. They were like, okay, we're waging war on dull online learning. What does that mean? That means gamification. That means social. At that time, people didn't really know, you know, what that was. And then finally, this idea of purpose. So by unleashing your inner superhero, that is a core driver of what we all want. We all want to be the, you know, the best versions of ourselves. Okay, so when we think about our why, we want to think about how it links into some of the core desires our customers might have, right? The need to be famous, the need to be recognized, the need to be, you know, seen as whatever it might be. The other thing that we need to focus on are the pain points. So what are the current frustrations? Well, you know, if I just look at the growth engineering example again, we wage war on dull online learning. The frustration is, why do people hate their learning so much? You know, why don't they like it, right? So again, the pain point for them is, we want a more exciting world. Why does everybody hate us? Why does everybody think the learning and development is so boring, right? So we're basically, you know, lasering in on their frustrations. We're also lasering in on their aspirations. What if we could make learning finally exciting? We could make learning, you know, interesting, yada, yada, yada. And then the other thing is fear of getting left behind. Okay, and we see that a lot in the work that we're doing in iridescent technology. Yes, I want to do a big, massive AI project. you know, do I know what it is? No, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But do I need to do it? Yes, I do. I absolutely need to do it, and I need to do it now. I need to do it now. So you are playing directly into that idea of, you know, I have an emotional need to stamp out that problem. And then once you've basically, you know, lent into their core desires, you've aligned that with pain points, you can then start to talk about solutions in terms of big kind of why things, like transforming the way, you know, work is going to be done. You know, just imagine what could happen once you've got an organization where every single person in your organization wants to learn and get better every single day. And finally, you know, can you imagine what the board would think if this, you know, solution did turn out to be a rip-roaring success? Okay, so this emotional resonance mapping should again keep coming back into all of your messaging, right? It just should keep coming back, and you should just keep thinking, am I talking enough about the why? Am I, of course, yes, you need the what and the how, but it has to be linked to the why. And then here, what we've got is we've got the value proposition canvas. So here, what we can do is we can look at our products and services with regards to the value proposition canvas that we are going to. So first, what you need to do is list down your products and services, and then match them to the jobs that to be done, the pain points they might have, the gains they might have, and so that you can really see the value that your products and services offer, how they relieve that pain, and how you can basically, you know, gain creators and gain advocates for your products and services. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to start here with your homework. Okay, try and identify the why, the how, the what. Then you want to go and look at where you are likely to be. My view, most of you are going to be down here. And even if you've been around as long as we have at Growth Engineering, it's always a good idea to do a little bit of an audit, like who is recognizing our brand at the moment, you know, before we kind of move up the transcendence cycle. If you are just starting out, then what you might want to do is visualize what these steps look like. So what does this actually look like if they did? You know, what could it look like? Then what you want to do is look at what is driving those that emotional resonance for your customers. So you want to look at their core drivers. You know, why do they want to do what they want to do? How does it make them feel like they belong? You know, what growth is in there for them? What purpose? Then move on to their pain points. So what are their frustrations, their fears, their aspirations? And then finally, how do your solutions meet that? Okay. And then looking at the value proposition canvas as well. So looking at the customer profile and the value map. Okay, so these should all build on each other, and they should be getting more simple and simple as you kind of move through your homework. So once we've identified clearly, okay, what our why is, what we need to do is we need to have multiple ways of talking about the same why in multiple different ways. And sometimes that's really difficult to do because we literally just run out of imagination. Now, the good news is we've obviously got Claude and we've got AI and we've got all these wonderful things. So we can put in, this is our why. This is, you know, lots of different whys that we've got, but ultimately this is our why. And then we can say, look, we need to create some stories. We need to create some narrative. We need to basically create some imagination about how these whys work within our organization and for our organization and for people that dovetail or stakeholders with our organization. So again, this is a fantastic model, and you'll have to forgive me because I have not put who created this. So this was a book that a very clever person wrote about. It's the 7 themes of storytelling, it's called. I did not come up with this. I haven't come up with anything in this, I should say. But basically what this looks at are the different ways of telling the same story, but basically in multiple different ways. Okay, so first of all, and you will all recognize, thank you very much, Harry. Yep, absolutely, legend that is Harry has just popped it in there. That's great. Thank you, Harry. So the stories that move people are, how have I overcome the monster? So again, going back to Kieran's point on LinkedIn about, I'm hearing lots of personal stories. On LinkedIn now, you see a lot of things like, my business has gone bust, but this year I'm starting a new business. You know, I've learned my lessons, and this is basically how I've overcome, you know, X, Y, Z. Of course, the rags to riches, you know, I get that a lot on TikTok. I thought this was going to be, here was my warehouse. There was all this stock in it. I put my house on the line, you know, Now skip forward. Look what's happened. You know, my post went viral and now there's nothing in the warehouse, right? The quest. Okay. So the quest could be, we, or I, tried to do this when we were launching Zavmo. We're building something completely and utterly new, and I want to take you on the journey. And again, if you look at my TikTok, I didn't do it very well. There wasn't enough emotional resonance. There certainly wasn't enough of kind of like the why behind it, but I did try. But that's the quest story, okay? And the quest story is really great if you're on a startup, because people really start rooting for you. So particularly if you're in a situation where you're doing a rebrand, or you're doing, you know, you want to basically show the journey, the quest is a really wonderful one, because you build your market, right, as you build the product. And certainly that's what happened to growth engineering. So I'm sorry, certainly that's what happened to iridescent technology. Although I don't think my TikToks are particularly good, I did have the discipline to continue to do that. And from that, and with the help of Billy, we were able to build a big beta tester community that basically tested Zavmo and gave us a load of feedback. And from that, we've already got our first large corporate clients. So don't underestimate the quest story, right? Start from now. I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. Everything's going wrong. Please help me. It's just a great one for a startup. Then the journey and return, right? So I've been there, I went all the way there, and then now, you know, I'm coming all the way back. It's been a struggle, but at the end of the day, you know, this is all about kind of rebirth and, you know, moving forward. So there's the return, the journey, and the return. And of course, that can be the highs and lows, okay? Because people do not like consistent success, okay? They don't. They really get really bored of people that, you know, look great, know everything, and basically are consistently doing awesome, right? They really don't like that. And we've seen that in the conversation we've just had on socials. People do like the highs and the lows. So don't be scared to basically share that element as well. Now, I'm not a funny person. Like, I might say one funny thing in a year. It's really embarrassing. But some people are just naturally goddamn funny. And it is beauty just to basically get somebody to make you laugh. So if you are born with that talent, okay, and again, ChatGTP, give me a joke on, I don't know, gamification in learning, and these are the characters. Bosh, you've got a joke. You've got some comedy. Now maybe it might not be that simple, but you at least might be able to write a tongue-in-cheek article on LinkedIn, or you might be able to do something that basically incorporates comedy in there. Then of course you've got tragedy. Now tragedy just does work. Okay, you are going to get, but you can't use tragedy all the time, as we know, because on social media, if you've got that person that is posting consistently how bad and tragic their life is, then very soon you're like, seriously, God helps those who help themselves. You are really, really not helping yourself. This is really boring. But every so often, a good tragedy is really, really worthwhile. So do not underlook or overlook tragedy. And then, of course, if nothing like that is working, and basically, your business is, X, Y, Z, and it's not going the way you want, you've always got the rebirth story. So we started here. Back in the day, I had a dream and it was going to happen like this. Unfortunately, I haven't kept up with things, or, the market's changed, or X, Y, Z, my company got ripped away from me, or da-da-da-da-da. But I am determined to learn from those lessons and, succeed and come out the other side. So people absolutely love a rebirth story. And remember, in social, The idea is that you don't tell the whole story all in one go. Okay. So if you're really super smart and really super clever, you could basically pull lots of these different themes together. Okay. Run it through ChatGPT and say, look, I want to do a post every single day for the next, 3 months. And I want it to have an element of overcoming the monster, an element of tragedy, and an element of, whatever the quest. Okay. This is my central why. This is my product. Can you help me have ideas for every single day? Don't think you're doing this alone. We now have these wonderful things called AI agents, and basically they can help you be the best version of yourself. The other thing is if you don't like it, just ask it again in a different way, right? But ultimately, the lesson really of takeaway here is that social will be king. And so if you want to get on top of your marketing, you've got to get on top of social. And if you're my age, that's not necessarily easy. And so we need to have a logical way of getting our brain to understand what we need to do in order to get us to that emotional resonance with our client. Okay, this is all about emotional resonance. It's about making a connection. Okay, and the question is, that doesn't happen by magic. That emotional resonance starts right back here at the why am I doing it, right? People care about the why that you're doing it, right? Then when you're moving through, you can move up to say, where am I? How successful am I? Am I moving up that pyramid? And then am I linking that why to the core pain, the core emotional resonance that your clients have, the value proposition that you have created in and around that, in order to create stories, consistent stories that you can share on a daily basis. Yeah. So that brings us to 2 minutes to go on application. Now, one of the things, I have got 2 minutes to go, so I'm just gonna if I can, I am a little bit worried that we're moving really fast through this content. Some people's brains love that, some people's brains don't. I'm worried about how you guys are applying it and if you're happy with your application. And if there is anything that you want to do in terms of breakout groups or anything like that with regards to making sure that you're able to put these concepts into reality through discussion or anything like that. Has anybody got any points they would like to make on that? Because we can very easily create groups. We could do like an Andorra group, we could do a GSK group, we could do, so that you guys could come together after these sessions, let's say for, half an hour to basically discuss it. I know we've got some companies on here that obviously don't need that facilitation, but I don't know if there's any interest from anybody else in order to help you guys to put this into action.
I'd love to do an Andorra one. I think that would be super helpful. Yeah.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Yeah, let's open that queue. Jared, love to hear from you. I think you're on mute.
I would say the same. Yes, you hear me now?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, okay. I would say the same for, and it actually makes possible that we have some laughter as well in that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So if we do an Andorra group, if we do anyone associated with GSK, because I think there's a couple of people that are associated on GSK, and then Matt,
I would like it to be part of the Andorra group, which is like 6,000 meters above sea level, and I'm 6,000 meters under sea level. So that definitely makes it fun.
Okay, great. So yeah, Jared, why don't you join the Andorra group? Matt,
yeah, I will do that.
Matt, if you join the GSK group, because you're in the UK, the businesses are kind of more or less similar. And I think that kind of covers everybody who is not, obviously growth engineering will be in growth engineering. Oh, Sam, do you want to join the GSK group? Sam? Anyway, I'll shove him in the GSK group. Now, do we want to have a students group? So I'm just looking at, we've got Ed and we've got a couple of other students. That Alicia, I think you're a student. Do you want to go into a students group?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Either that, Julia, I might drag him into Apollo because he's going to do some marketing on behalf of Apollo.
Okay.
And he'll probably be dragged into our one.
Okay, fantastic. So then we've got a couple of floaters. Then what I'm suggesting with those is, why don't I just do a catch-all group for those? And I'll just call it kind of like students in marketing or something like that. So what we'll do is, if it works fine for you, what I suggest you do is you just bounce straight into those groups now when the learning is fresh, and you can just bounce straight into them. So if that works for you, and of course you don't have to do it every day, you know, if you don't want to join, you don't have to, but it just means you've got the learning fresh off the hoof and you can start applying it.
Just sorry to interrupt, Juliet. Just what kind of, how are you seeing that breakout structured? Like, where do we start? Do we look at the socials quickly and say what we get from them, or how does that?
So
talking generally.
First of all, what I would do is I would do a lesson recap. So I would start off with the question, right? What have we learned from this lesson, right? And is everybody on the same page? So let's recap, because obviously when I'm talking, I talk really fast, and sometimes, you know, I don't make a lot of sense to people. So let's start with a recap, right? What did Juliet say? What were the key themes? And of course, you've all got the presentations there. And then what would be really interesting is, what has made the most difference to me in my company? So if I were looking at this from an iridescent point of view, and our business, you know, is really at the very, very early stages, I would be looking at emotional resonance. I could be going right back to, you know, what is our why? So yeah, that's basically what I would start at. So I'd start off and go around and share that in the group, because different aspects of the presentation will have bigger impacts to different ones of you. And I would just start with those two things, and then basically take it from there. I mean, remember, guys, there is no right answer to this. This is literally just you trying to work out how we penetrate harder, faster, meaner, leaner in terms of our sales and marketing, so that we can grow, you know, with the least amount of money and the maximum amount of, you know, the maximum amount of input. Okay, so I'll put those meetings on Discord. Obviously, Apollo, you're going to do your own thing on marketing. GE, you're going to do your own thing, but we've got those groups, or we will create those groups for Andorra, for GSK, and the, you know, students floating group. So tomorrow we're talking about numbers. It's not a finance session, guys. It's basically a case study. But by looking at the case study, you're going to understand the importance of numbers. If you are a finance person, you're going to laugh at this, okay? It's not a finance session. It is to get us thinking about how important sales margin is, and maximizing that margin in order to be able to get creative with the other elements of the business that we need to cost and drive forward. Okay, that's it from me. I will be in Discord. If this has recorded successfully, it will go up on YouTube. Apologies, I still haven't got everything working the way I want it to work, because I've got so many windows open. And I also find it much nicer if I can see your faces. When I was doing it yesterday, I could just see the screen, and it just makes me feel like I'm monologuing. So I need to figure that out. So apologies if you're watching this via recording, but we will get it right eventually. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for attending, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.